Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. Rob Bonta, California Attorney General. And I want to thank in particular Berkeley Police Chief Jennifer Lewis for joining me today for this announcement. We're here because car makers Hyundai and Kia violated federal regulations by producing cars with deficiencies in their starting systems and, as a result, sold cars that are extremely vulnerable to theft, including sidestepping anti-theft safety standards that require the key to be present in order for the car to start or move. We're here because even after these deficiencies were brought to light, were shared with Kia and Hyundai, even after they became fodder for a viral TikTok trend and movement, Hyundai and Kia continued to fail to adequately respond by creating cars that can be started without the key, cars that don't come with anti-theft devices that are standard across the country, even standard in cars Kia and Hyundai manufacture in other countries like Canada and in Europe. Hyundai and Kia have left us no choice but to call on the federal government to either order a mandatory recall or work with the companies to institute a voluntary recall of the affected vehicles. The truth is, we shouldn't be here today. We shouldn't have to do this. Hyundai and Kia should have taken action of their own volition to correct the vulnerabilities. Not only because thefts of affected vehicles have exploded over the past couple of years, not only because the problem has led to numerous crashes, numerous injuries, and at least 8 deaths nationwide, not only because they've created vehicles that are out of compliance with federal safety standards, and not only because a number of insurance companies won't even take the risk of covering these cars now, but because it's the right thing to do. Because when you've made mistakes that render your vehicles easily stolen, and those mistakes are clearly causing harm to so many owners and the public, you fix them. It's simple. Yet, they have not. So we're here today. When you consider all that you need is a screwdriver and a USB cable and a few minutes to steal one of these cars, when you consider that Hyundai and Kia are among the only car manufacturers that didn't include this industry standard anti-theft technology in their U.S. cars, but again, they did include it in the same cars that they sold at the same time in Canada and in Europe, when you consider that frustrated and scared customers who've lost their biggest investment, and vehicles are one of the biggest investments consumers ever have, at no fault of their own, have repeatedly asked for help, have reached out to Kia, reached out to Hyundai, asked for support, asked for change, or when you consider that law enforcement agencies have had to pull resources from other priorities because so many of these cars are being stolen. The mistakes are obvious, and so is the need for action, yet that action has not been taken by Hyundai or Kia. 1 month ago, I, along with 22 other attorneys general, we sent Hyundai and we sent Kia a letter outlining our concerns and urging them to take immediate further corrective action. The software updates that they've offered up to now, they are not sufficient. First of all, the updates won't be available for many vehicles until June. In the meanwhile, their cars are vulnerable to the theft that we're seeing. Second, those software updates are not available at all for approximately 600,000 Hyundai owners, plus additional Kia owners, an unknown number of Kia owners, but we believe a significant number. And finally, the only remedy they offered for consumers whose cars can't accommodate the software updates is a steering wheel lock, like the commonly known as the Club is one brand. It's a Band-Aid that puts the onus on drivers and ignores the underlying ignition system flaw. Hyundai and Kia have given us no choice but to be here today to ask the federal government to step in and require a recall, either ordered by NHTSA or agreed to voluntarily by the companies. A NHTSA monitored recall and all the regulatory protections that come along with it is the only way to ensure a complete, comprehensive, full solution for all of the affected vehicles. The bottom line is Hyundai and Kia, they made choices that have led to numerous thefts that have harmed not only owners whose cars have been stolen, but leaving others in a state of constant risk and causing significant harm to the public. When these cars are stolen, they have led to injuries, they've led to death, they've led to other crimes being committed using those vehicles. And those threats, those risks to public safety are ongoing because again, Kia and Hyundai's failure to act despite multiple pleas. The company's response to date is simply unacceptable. It's time for a federally monitored recall to correct the problems in all of the vehicles. Before we open it up to questions, I'd like to welcome Berkeley Police Chief Jennifer Lewis to share a few words.
Good morning. So our strategic analysis team was taking a look at our data, and what we discovered was an alarming increase in the number of Kias and Hyundais that were stolen in our city. We went from what we were experiencing, a 1 to 2% of our stolen vehicles were Hyundais and Kias, to 38%. This alarming increase led our strategic analysis team to take a look at what was driving this theft and how that was spreading among our community. What we discovered was social media influences setting a challenge was giving people the information on how to easily steal these vehicles. Understanding the direct and extreme impact this was having on our community, we immediately put out a community message. In the community message, we provided some information. How can we keep our community members safe, prevent this from occurring? The things we shared were parking in a well-lit place, parking in a garage, things that some people may not have the ability to do. We also talked about using steering lock devices. What we thought was the most impactful, and what we believe from a law enforcement perspective is the most impactful, is the mobilizer devices, theft deterrent devices that have to be installed in the vehicle. Recognizing the importance of this, we really were appreciative of the Attorney General for asking us to participate in this. We know our community needs this. Not only are people directly affected by the loss of their vehicle, but we know that the theft of these vehicles is resulting in those stolen vehicles being used to perpetrate further crimes. Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. I also want to recognize Holly Mariella, Deputy Attorney General, who's here working on this case and been working on it for some time, getting it to where it is. I want to thank her and her team for all the great work getting us to where we are today. But I just want to build up on some of that data that was shared about Berkeley. Essentially, almost a double in the thefts of the Kias and Hyundais at issue. That is not uncommon throughout the state or throughout the country. We're seeing that thefts of these Kias, these Hyundais are fueling an epidemic of thefts throughout the nation. And so the way to steal them is known. It's all over social media. It's known to Kia. It's known to Hyundai. And yet they have failed to act appropriately in response. So we're here today asking national authorities to get involved and to initiate a recall. And with that, we can answer any questions that you might have.